This is the 10th year of the salary survey, so the Colorado salary survey. So we're excited to review the results and also like hit that milestone together. So let's get started, and let me see if I can. Yep. Okay, cool. So first we'll go through announcements. So first we'll have any announcements from like the community group leaders. So today this event is hosted by both the Denver developer group leaders as well as the Denver admin group leaders. So any announcements on either side, and then we'll open it up for any announcements or like job postings or anything people want to bring up from the audience. Then we'll go through the 2022 Colorado salary survey findings. Myself and Chris Fellier, who's also on, he's one of the admin group leaders. We will be presenting the findings together, and then we'll open it up for questions and discussion. That said, if you have any feedback or questions as we go along, feel free to chat and just throw them in there, and we can try to address them as you bring them up. Cool. So first, community group announcements. I'll first defer to Paul because I know that we had some things to bring up, and then I'll see if the admin group has anything.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. So first is a call for presenters. For a couple of years now, we've been doing a post-trailhead / winter release meeting, and our next one for the developer user group is coming up in March. So if you are going to Trailblazer DX or have some things on the winter release that you'd like to present on, feel free to reach out to me in chat or in the developer group Slack channel. The user group leaders have done it historically, and we're still happy to go through and put together a presentation if nobody else wants to present, but it'd be great to hear some of our group members come up and see what they get out of Trailhead or Trailblazer.
Cool. Thanks, Paul. Is there anything else from either our group or the admin group we want to mention?
Yeah, I can grab something. Yeah, if you're headed to TDX, let us know in the messages there. I think I will actually be going this year. It was down to the wire getting approval for travel. But yeah, it looks like as of today, I'll be headed out that way. So it'd be fun to see anyone else out there from Denver. Also, Mile High Dreamin' this year in August, 30 and 31. We are actively planning that. So mark your calendars to participate. We'll be sharing some more things as soon as we get them locked in. In the meantime, if you are part of a company or someone who'd like to sponsor, or if you'd like to speak, just reach out to us through the website, or you can email me directly. I'll put my email in there as well. Or yeah, the website works. I'll put that in there. There's a little form there, so fill that out. Sponsors, speakers, you name it. We're letting you guys kind of get the first chance to do that. So send us an email, let us know what you're thinking, and we'll get in contact.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Lots of exciting stuff happening. The next thing is if there's any announcements or job openings from the rest of the larger group here, this is a good time to pull them up, and you can either mention it now or just pull it up and put it in the chat, and we'll keep an eye on that as well. So I'll give everyone a second if they have any announcements or job postings they want to mention. All right. So like I said, just feel free to post stuff in the chat if you have any job postings or anything else that comes up as we go. But I think we can go ahead and get started with the 2022 Colorado salary survey results. So first, just want to thank everyone here and everyone who's not here. We have 44 attendees here, but we had like over 150 responses. So clearly there are people who responded who aren't here. So just a huge thanks to everyone who participated in this survey this year and in previous years. It really helps our community understand kind of just the different markers for salary across ecosystem specific to Denver. So we really appreciate the time and effort put into that. Obviously, we could not have done this without you all. So thanks for all the effort there. And then we'll go through the salary survey results. First, we'll do a brief overview of the survey, high-level 2022 results, year-over-year trends. Chris will get into experience and education, certifications, gender and salary, and then any additional resources that we have to share at the end. Cool. Okay, so as we mentioned at the beginning, this is the 10th year of data collection and analysis for the Colorado Salary Survey for Salesforce professionals. We've only been doing it, we as in I guess the current Denver admin group leaders have only been doing it for the past 3 years. So a huge thanks to Joanna and all the previous Denver admin group leaders in the past who carried this through. And now we're doing it as a collaboration as I've joined the Denver Dev Group leadership team. So it's cool this year to kind of join forces across the Denver community groups and do it together. So we've borrowed some slide layouts as well as some data points and different key insights from previous years, mostly as an effort to keep things consistent across the years so that we can continue to compare year-over-year trends as well as collect the same types of information each year. If you've taken the salary survey last year or the year before, I believe we had a section about impacts of COVID-19 on work environment and I think benefits and bonuses and things like that. We took that out this year. So that will not be included in the analysis, obviously, because we don't have that data. But that's just kind of an update on the changes for this year. Okay, cool. So just a quick overview. So how the data was collected. So the survey was conducted and analyzed by the Denver, Colorado community group leaders, including admin and developer group leaders. And they were collected during the month of January this year. And they were limited, the analysis was limited to responses for residents of Colorado. So anything that we'll mention this in more detail in a minute, but any respondent who indicated that they didn't live in Colorado during 2022 as their primary residence was not included in the analysis. And we're presenting it today on February 22nd, 2023, which is actually exactly the same date last year we presented it. So that was, I don't know, kind of an exciting thing for me, but I'm kind of a nerd with dates. Cool. So in the previous years, I've gone through the year-over-year trends before the high-level results, but this year I'm going to do the high-level results first. I don't know, I kind of go back and forth between this and decided an hour ago to do this. So we'll see how it goes. But basically, instead of going through the year-over-year, I'm going to go through the 2022 high-level results first and then compare in the next section to previous years.
So, Lauren, just a quick question in chat.
Yeah.
If you go back to your date slide, these responses were all collected this February, right? 2023?
Yes.
Or this January?
Those dates are wrong. Yes. So they were collected 1/1/2023 to 2/1/2023. So I'll update that.
Thanks.
Good catch. Okay. And I think last year was also a year behind. So I'll fix both those. Cool. So this year, we collected a total of 168 responses. Actually, we collected slightly more than that, but a few were excluded because they didn't meet certain criteria or the data seemed, there was issues with the data quality, but we have 168 responses that are included in the analysis, which is awesome. It's a big jump from last year and I think the years prior. So we had a lot of participation this year, which is awesome. So thanks again for that participation. Of course, we had the most of the respondents were administrators, and then the next in line was consultants, architects, developers, And then we had an other category, which when people kind of put more details on that, it turned out to be more like sales roles or product owner roles, things like that. But basically, it looks like we have a pretty healthy number of architects, but the administrator bucket really continues to be, I guess, at least the people who respond most to this survey. So when asking from working from home, office, or hybrid, our respondents were the vast majority of them working from home, which is a pretty big jump from life prior to COVID, with 72% of our workforce who answered the survey working from home, 23% hybrid, and then only a little under 5% working from their company office. As far as non-salary benefits, the most commonly reported were, oh, I thought I updated this one, but basically the most commonly reported were paid time off. I took out work from home as a benefit and put it in the previous slide, but basically the paid time off was the largest one, which isn't necessarily surprising since that's a common benefit. Then 401k matching, and pretty much it looks, so basically this isn't all of the non-salary benefits, but it's the ones that are anything including and above 15%. So there were some things on here that were kind of surprising, pleasantly surprising, is way more full employer paid health insurance that I would have assumed. So that's 36% of the respondent pool, as well as tech reimbursement was pretty large, flexible work hours, and then annual bonus as well. Any questions or comments about this? I feel like I see the chat moving quickly.
We have some people that aren't getting the updated slides. They're advancing for me. If you're having trouble, try refreshing.
Looks okay.
Okay. Okay, cool. So refresh and see the new slides. Yeah, I would try refreshing since I can see the presentation in this screen. It looks like it is advancing, so I'm not sure if we can fix that on our end. Okay, cool. So then as far as non-salary benefits, the average benefits count across all the respondents was 10 of the listed benefits, which is pretty high. I don't remember the exact number from last year, but it's definitely a step above that. So it at least looks like from this respondent pool that benefits are becoming a bit more competitive than at least what was reported last year. Okay. And then for the overall salary across all respondents, the average base salary reported for this year was about 123,000, including bonus. It was around 131,000. And then you can see the breakdowns here by role. And you see that I think what was like especially interesting was looking at the discrepancies with like average salary plus bonus, as some of them really, when you get to certain roles, for example, manager and executive roles tend to like jump a bit more than the administrator roles. So my assumption there is like either administrators don't necessarily have, not as many of them are reporting bonuses, or they may be like a smaller percentage of their base salary than some of those higher roles. And then you can see, so moving forward, the manager and executive roles tend to be grouped together in some of these other charts and tables, because as they got kind of as we like cross-reference them with other data points, they tended to be like pretty small sample sizes. So that's why here this one is collapsed, combined. Cool. So then if we take the current year and compare it to previous years, we can look at the year-over-year trends. So here we can see, like I said, we're looking at the response rate, and then down here are just some notes about exactly who's included, and I just wanted to be transparent about why certain responses may have been excluded in current years and previous years. But if you see, we have 168 responses, included responses from 2022, which is up 45% from last year. So that's an exciting and also just kind of interesting data point as to why that may have dropped. I could make assumptions because it was COVID and we were hitting Omicron about the same time last year that the survey went out. I think that maybe that was a potential reason why people didn't respond, either from just being like overloaded with other things happening, or just not having the bandwidth to do yet another thing. But anyway, either way, the percent change increasing by 45% is pretty exciting. And then we can look at the customers and the Salesforce partners broken up at 61% larger than last year. And then the Salesforce partners is up 53% from last year. The nonprofit group is interesting because this one isn't actually, like, this is kind of pulled from a subset of the data, from like a combination of the data. So these numbers won't add up to 168, but of the customers and Salesforce partners, there were 16 nonprofit or 16 respondents who were in the nonprofit sector, and that is up from 9 respondents last year, up 78%. So yeah, any questions or comments so far? I feel like I'm maybe going through this a little fast. Okay, I don't really see anything in the chat. Cool. Okay, so then if we look at average salary plus bonus year over year, we can see that from last year, it's increased about 7.5%. The year prior, the average salary and bonus, including bonus, increased 11.5%, and then the years prior, it had actually gone down a bit. But yeah, so I guess we all like to see an upward trend here, especially when we're, dealing with inflation and other cost of living increases in 2023. Cool. So then between last year and this year, the mean base salary has increased by about 6.5%, a little over 6.5%. And then just to be open about the range that we're dealing with is the minimum base salary actually went down a bit, but the maximum base salary went up. So if we look at that range and then think about kind of the average base salary, we can get a picture of how things may have shifted since 2021. And then we always kind of do this comparison of the salary disparity between nonprofit and for-profit respondents who work in those sectors. So if we look at 2022, the for-profit salary plus bonus has increased by about 7%. The nonprofit salary plus bonus amount has actually increased by about 17%, but we still have a 30% disparity between for-profit and nonprofit salaries within our respondent pool. So it's still a pretty big disparity, although it is getting slightly smaller, but not always the best thing to see or report on. But we see some slight improvements at least, which is a positive. And then if we look at the reported bonus, so that we can kind of pull that out relative to the salary plus bonus amounts, it does look like bonus amounts have been increasing for both, or the average amount has been increasing for both for-profit and nonprofit, although it is still significantly lower, and they're significantly fewer respondents who've reported bonuses in the nonprofit side versus for-profit. Cool. So that is the high level and year over year overview. Are there any questions or comments before we move on to the experience and education? Cool. All right, then I will hand it over to do the next section.
All right. Yeah. Well, first, I just want to say I broke out my extra special hoodie with my sparkly lightning bolt on it. I think I only wear it to these events because people make fun of me in public. But I'm very proud of this hoodie, so I wanted to wear it for today. So getting into experience in education, go to the next slide there. This is always my favorite part of the salary survey because it kind of shows where the sweet spots are. And I just want to send out some massive props to people who've been in the ecosystem for more than 14 years, because it looks like they've been catching the message from the last couple of salary surveys, which is it's time to up your salaries and to ask for a raise or something. Because for a long time, it was 7 to 9 years was the sweet spot. And now it's increased. So after 14 plus years, you are making the highest amounts. So well done, everyone who's been in this for over a decade. And the rest of us now have a new goal to go after. So you can see here, the largest number of participants were in the 4 to 6 year range, which is great. So we got a lot of people growing in their careers now. And then obviously the 14 plus years was the least amount, because that's a very long time. So well done. You guys have been in this thing since before Trailhead and before it was super easy to learn. So well done, everyone. And even our 1 to 3 years, we got a lot of people coming in hot here and growing, and we're excited to get you guys in the system and growing with us. And now you know kind of what your goal is. If you're at 90, your goal is 168. So just go to your manager next week and be like, I saw a salary survey where people are making a lot more than me. So let's see what we can do about that. Let's see. Yeah. So we can go to the next one now. That's a good comment, Paul. Yeah. So a lot more flexibility in the platform now than back in the day. So yeah, these are a little bit small. I'm going to pull my screen down here so I can zoom in a little bit. This is one of my favorite things as well about the survey is the salary or the education. Oh, there we go.
Sorry, I got a little whack.
No worries. One of my favorite pieces of Salesforce is that it is free to learn, unless you got started 14 years ago when you probably had to read a book about it. But now there's a free gamified site we all know and love. And so you don't really have to have any, the only kind of barriers still are the old school job descriptions that require college, but hopefully most of those are moving to just experience and not requiring a 4-year degree because it's obvious we don't need that in Salesforce. We certainly don't need a lot of the higher education stuff, the graduate programs and the PhDs and all that, which by all means, good on you if you've accomplished those feats, because that is not easy. It's just I really get excited to see that you don't have to go through those things anymore in order to be successful in tech. So here we are. You can kind of take a look. The architects are still out there with graduate school, but that's kind of the main one there, which makes sense. A lot of computer backgrounds, programming backgrounds, where you actually learn the underlying infrastructure Salesforce sits on top of. But yeah, a lot of administrators. It's kind of a mix there, but generally high school diploma is all that you need. So that makes me happy. Again, if you're going to be an architect, you're probably going to want to do some of the higher education just to get familiar with the way things are built so that you can understand the infrastructure behind what it is that you're working with every day. Apparently managers need to go to college, so that makes sense. A lot of skills you learn there that talk about college. I don't know. Some college is worse than only high school. That's true. I guess if you're going to start college, maybe just get on Trailhead and see how it goes. And that's, I don't think we have any students on this call, so I'm not getting in trouble with any people that work in colleges, but I did talk once to a set of students and was like, hey, if you're borrowing money for this, it's a bad idea. just get on Trailhead and learn for free. Then you can pay for your own college if you want, or you can get an employer that pays you to go to college, which is nice as well. So all of that to say, if you're thinking about that MBA, if it's free, go for it. But if you're going to borrow a lot of money, maybe just do a super badge or two and see where your career takes you. All right, we can go to the next slide. Certifications. This is another, I mean, this chart itself, it always confuses me. It did last year as well. I don't know if it's, I'm sure it's grown quite a bit. Or is this the newest one?
Yeah, this one is so it's the Salesforce Ben certification pass updated January 2023.
Okay.
Yeah, so I believe there are now, I went in and counted them. I believe there are now 42 certifications that I don't think include like MuleSoft and the other kind of extensions at this point. So there's a lot going on here.
There is no shortage of paths to take. And then, yeah, if you're going to get Slack and MuleSoft, and I'm assuming Tableau has something. So yeah, that's just on our on our screen here is just Salesforce specific credentials. But at the end of the day, I still feel like it comes down to you're going to have a skill set that leans towards administrator or developer. But then I know they have a lot of search now for business analysts, which is awesome because I feel like that's really important. And then as a consultant, you're probably going to want to get as many as you can anyway. So just see where it takes you and grow into what you enjoy doing. So yeah, no shortage of certification options. And we go to the next slide. And this makes me happy. Administrator. Let me get on my screen so I can see it. Here we go. Everybody has the administrator certification, which is good. I know that can come get into some problems if you work at a place where all of your people that aren't in administrators say they are administrators and they want access. Because a lot of people get that cert and then don't end up using it. But here we are all Salesforce administrators who work in Salesforce. So we can tell other people who don't have that title to please stop asking for admin access. But yeah, so the admin cert is the most popular because it does make sense. It's kind of where everybody wants to start. Even if you're a developer, I know one of my mentees recently, they went with the administrator cert and now they are going for a more dev focus, which is, it's great. I think a lot of people do that. I think Lauren, that's how it was. That your path was going admin then dev.
Yep, I was admin and then kind of like a analyst / admin role and then dev.
Yeah.
So, and then now I've been like pure like a only dev for I don't know like 2 years. So yeah, I think I always say like I think it's really helpful to do the admin to at least like understand that and do that certification and have that background because it does come up when you're writing code.
Yeah, and it's just important to know the platform you're on and kind of how it works on the front end so you can really digest the back end when it comes to it. And overall, the administrators, the best place to start for everyone. Advanced administrators also great, but from what I've seen and from my own mentor, it's like I personally only have the administrator still because I want to wait till if I go somewhere and they pay me to get more, then I'll do that. Otherwise, I'm just getting certs to get certs, and I think generally experience will overcome any amount of certifications. Again, if you're a consultant, I think that's kind of a focus is to make sure you bring a lot of certs to the table so that your company combined has a better standing. But functionally, once you know how it works as an admin, you can build off of that. So if you're out there and you're trying to figure out how to take the next step in your career, I would say, doing the super badges, getting more experience in other orgs and just building things is going to get you a lot further than only getting certs to have the certs. Because then at some point, somewhere we talked about how many certs is it on the next slide?
I was gonna say definitely a balance there. Just I don't know if you saw it in chat, Chris. Carrie was calling out. We don't see sales or service on here. Maybe they just got left off.
I'll double check. That might be an error, but that's a good call out. I'll double check that. Since I see like associate has 13, so maybe that is something that was an error. But before we post it to the archive where we store these, I'll make sure that's accurate.
Oh yeah. So the next slide is the one by bucketed role, and this kind of shows average per. So yeah, administrator typically has a couple. Analysts have more. Architects obviously are going to have a larger number because they're going to be all over their the back end and just kind of understanding the platform itself. I'd say I'm surprised that consultants generally had fewer than the average developer, unless most developers are consultants in the group. I'm not sure, but yeah, I would think the consultants would outnumber everyone else, because that's always seems like a focus. If you hire a consultant, they put the number of certs cumulatively on all their marketing, and they want you to know that their people have the most certs. So that is interesting. And also that the manager and the executive roles have that many. I assume that probably comes from people who started off in a admin or a dev focus role and then moved into management. If anyone out there is a manager who can speak to that, feel free to put it in the chat. But yeah, overall, 6.3 for architects and 1.9 for other. I'm not sure what the other roles are, just everything that's not those main ones, I guess. But yeah, administrators 2.2. So again, you don't have to get more certs, but they don't hurt anyone, and they definitely help you to learn. So keep going, keep growing. And I think that is all. Oh, no, average salary plus bonus. That's the best one. So yeah, I take everything I said back. Everyone needs to get at least 10 certifications, because that gets you the big bucks, according to this slide. So if you're content with only 6 figures, just don't get any. But if you really want to go down the rabbit hole, you can triple that number and get 10 or 11 certs. I don't obviously think this is a direct correlation, and it is wildly dependent on what org you're in, what company you work for, and all your levels of experience. But it is telling. I'm assuming these 10 to 11 are the architects, which would correlate with the previous slide, as they kind of have the most. But I guess it does get to a point, if you're an architect and you have an hourly rate that is extremely healthy, that people are going to want to know based on your profile that you have the search to back it up. So I am now going to go for 11, because honestly, if you hit 12, things aren't going well for you. So really keep it in that sweet spot. And that is the end of my part. Back to you,
Cool.
Lauren. Is this who do I send?
Yeah.
It? Awesome.
No, that was just being slow. It's been a day. Okay, cool. So thanks, Chris. That was the certs and the experience are always interesting to walk through. So thanks for walking through that. I will talk about gender and salary findings. So basically, what we've done is there were really small sample sizes for any gender pronouns selected that were not he, him, she, her. So we created a group called Everyone Else that includes both prefer not to say and other selections, just to kind of keep the anonymity. But so that's what that everyone else category means. But basically, when we look at average salary by gender pronoun, the average salary plus bonus is actually both average salary plus bonus and average base salary are higher for he, him, although I believe the gap, I have to look at the numbers again from last year. I believe the gap is getting a little bit smaller, but the he, him category is still higher than the she, her. And then everyone else is a lot higher than both of the other categories. So those responses would potentially, if the prefer not to say would have identified he, him, or she, her, that could have potentially shifted things a bit, but that is neither here nor there. So it's interesting that the she, her category, the respondents are so much, there's a lot more respondents in that category than he, him. So I think, I don't know, it's just an interesting data point to kind of look at it across the board. But I think the next slide gets into, the years of experience, which kind of breaks things down into more, I guess, digestible pieces. And it's interesting that I mean, this is such a small sample size, right? So we can't really like make a lot of like sweeping generalizations that should be applied, but it is interesting to look at the discrepancies between like the under 1 to 3 years between he, him, and she, her are kind of the opposite of the 4 to 6 years. So um, I don't really know. It's hard to like know what to do with this information because there are discrepancies between the years, but there's also I don't know. There are a lot of other variables, and it's just not a large enough sample size to make like a ton of discrete, um, I guess, findings off of it or assumptions off of it. It looks like at 7 to 9 years, they are actually almost equal. And then 10 plus years, which is collapsed because the sample sizes were just too small in the 14 plus. So the 10 plus includes the 10 to 13 and the 14 plus categories. Then the disparity gets much larger, like 35,000. So I guess, important to keep keep as like data points and take with a grain of salt that like there are other variables and it's hard to know exactly like what the roles are and all of that. But there are still some disparities between the different years and the gender pay gap. Then I added this slide this year because it was actually, I think it was requested during our last presentation. And I also had one of the like San Francisco user group leaders reach out to me and specifically ask for this data. So I added it here because he was like at 1 hour and 26 minutes, someone asked for this. Have you had a chance to look into it? And then a year later, I finally do. So this is the nonprofit compared with for-profit, and basically looking at the gender pronoun identified in the responses against the salaries. So I think that the he, him category was very small for the not-for-profit. So I would take this with a grain of salt, but essentially it looks like here in the for-profit, there is like obviously like a much larger, there's just the for-profit sector by itself has a much larger starting average salary, but it actually looks that in the not for profit, the she, her is making more than the he, him. And then everyone else, of course, is a much larger salary range. So, all right, any questions or discussion around this? I don't think so. Okay, cool. So then we have some more resources that we've added to this last slide. The Mason, if you are unaware or you haven't had a chance to look this year, the Mason Frank Careers and Hiring Guide, that's like, it used to be called the Salary Survey, and now it's called the Careers and Hiring Guide. And it has a lot of useful information. It's an international survey, so they have like a section specifically on the US, and they break it down by a couple different like interesting subsections that I don't think we necessarily look too closely into, but it's worth looking at. You have to give them your email address, so you'll be enlisted in some like marketing campaigns, but that's okay. I think that it's like really helpful information. And then there's also here I've linked to our Colorado Salary Survey archive that we put up last year. So this is where we have anything from 2013 all the way tomorrow. It'll include 2022. So if you want to take a look back, and then when we have other surveys that are given to us from other regions, we will take that PDF and put them in there. So that's another thing, just to know if you are aware of other salary surveys in different cities. We're happy to kind of if you could share them with us, we're happy to take those and put them in our archive too, so that it's just, shared information across the board. And then Salesforce Ben has their average Salesforce salaries 2023. And then this is a new one that I found today, but Salesforce Talent Ecosystem Report 22 was interesting. I think it's more about like different types of I didn't have a chance to look too deeply into it, but it was kind of like a different take on not just salaries, but kind of like the whole ecosystem and the different types of talent, how to retain talent and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's pretty much what we had for the presentation. And if we can open it up for questions, comments, discussion, if people want to provide reactions or any questions or anything about what we presented or what you've seen maybe in other reports or anything.
I know, Lauren, you spent a lot of time with this, and appreciate you and I spent a lot of time with this together a couple years ago, and there's a lot that goes into this. So thank you guys for doing this. I know it's quite a lot of work actually, and interesting to compare. I was just curious, obviously, with the depth that you have on it, like what was most surprising to you, kind of stand out? Like, is there like a top one or two things that kind of were headlines for you from the overall data?
This might be like a really boring answer, but I was I was just I don't know, I was excited by how much the respondent like how many more people responded this year and like trying to think through why that might be the case. We also, since we took out the section on COVID-19, um, it ended up being like a really quick survey to go through. So maybe that was like a barrier in the past 2 years that prevented people from finishing it. But that was interesting. And then also it was exciting to see that like the salary ranges, like the average salary is increasing. I know that there are some outliers that may like there were a couple like very high salaries this year that obviously are going to kind of shift things, but there have been in years prior too. So I think it was just exciting to see that like it seems like the community is like not only getting more responsive and larger, but also that there's an increase in the salary and that it seems to be that I don't know, there's more it seems to be like a very alive group. I don't know if that's a
Yeah.
weird way to put it.
We talked about that a lot, right? I mean, there was a lot of stresses on folks in 2020, and then you kind of got into 2021, and everyone's experience different. But yeah, we talked about this
Yeah.
a lot around 21. We were, I think, promoting it in a similar fashion. I didn't follow it as closely this year, of course, but yeah, we tried to promote it, every couple of weeks or every week or something. So yeah, it seems like, yeah, maybe just hopefully what I was calling sort of the pandemic hangover is starting to settle for some folks, and some of their lives are getting a little more sane, so they have more time for these things.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
maybe that timing, I didn't think about that. You're right. We probably did have that Omicron wave right at the same time, which right on top of everyone still trying to get out of the pandemic, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's great to see. Yeah, highest ever. Yeah, definitely something to be proud of too. Thank you guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Doug.
We definitely want to eventually bring these back to in-person things like they were in the before time, but that's a work in progress. So hopefully next year. And then overall, I think I'm just mostly impressed with those 14-year plus people for really sticking to the man and getting some more money. So way to go.
Is there a link to access the archive files?
Yes. So I'll share it in the chat, but I put it
Carrie shared it.
hold on, let
If
me
you
see.
scroll up a little, yeah.
Can I share it? Let's see. Can I copy it from here? Copy link address. Let's see if this works. Yep. So I just posted it in the chat and I will share this out to the various channels that we have. But so usually we'll put it on like the developer, I don't know what it's called, but it's like the Trailhead chatter group essentially. I'll mention the local groups and then we'll send it out in the different Slack channels. So that's typically how information is spread from us. But here's the link in the chat if you miss it, if you're afraid you'll miss it.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yep. Cool. Anything else before we wrap? Oh, there's a question. Have you considered showing median instead of mean, so that it's less susceptible to outliers? So the reason we've shown mean, honestly, is to be consistent so that we can do like the year over year stuff. But I have thought about doing median, although it's like, I don't know how much more, like maybe if we did like median for the different breakdowns of like the roles, that might be helpful. I mean, it's definitely something to look into. If there's anything that people feel strongly about, like next year for the presentation, I'd love to see XYZ. We can consider it for putting it in. So that's an interesting consideration to see, even to see how those things might differ between the average and the median. I'm just reading through the chat.
It's crazy. 10 years. To think it's been 10 years is crazy, honestly.
Yeah.
Denver was kind of a pioneer with this, with the group leaders that did this, right? And it sort of spread. And so, yeah, if you look back in like 18, they started collecting them and sharing them in our folder. Well, it was Joanna's folder, sort of, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I know it is kind of crazy. And I think something I want to get better at is like tracking down the other cities or regions that do it, because at this point I think there are a lot out there.
And Lauren, someone did mention that 2020 and 2021 are not in that archive. I thought we had put them in there. I know I have at least some access to
Yeah,
one of
they
those.
should be.
It was the wrong
Yeah.
archive, Doug. I think I had Joanna's old links, but it looks like there's new ones now.
Oh, is it a new one?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yep, slightly different Google Drive link. Good call out. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Maybe
No worries. And I think
consolidating
it's
that.
pinned. I think, Lauren, you called out, right? The community's coming back, it sounds like a bit, which is super exciting. And thanks to the leaders, the Trailblazer forums, which I haven't been on as much. I think the pinned resources, it's probably in there, right?
Yeah, you mean in the admin group?
Yeah, what we used to call the success groups, yeah. And now it's
Yeah.
Trailblazer community group,
That's what it's
forum,
called.
chatter.
Yeah. I
That
think
rolls
you
off the
pinned
tongue.
it. Yeah, it's definitely there. I feel like you put it there, Doug, when you were a leader.
I think we updated them. Yeah, when we were in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys did that. I know in past years there was always a slide around like what people's titles were. And I thought that was always kind of cool to kind of just see the difference in titles. Like even in the admin role, there were sometimes like 30 different titles that people identified as or had as their titles. I don't know if you guys could add that in the future, but that might be just cool to see, or see if maybe it's getting whittled down as roles get more standardized.
Yeah, that's something we can look into. Yeah, I think we definitely collect that information still, so I can just look into how involved it would be. But I think that would be, we could put it into one of those, what are they called? The word.
The word cloud.
Yeah, word cloud. Yeah. Cool. All right. Anything else before we wrap up? All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining, and for taking the survey, for those of you who did. And I think probably by the end of the day tomorrow, I'll post it into that archive that I linked to. I think there's like one thing that I needed to double check. But yeah, so thanks everyone. And I guess we look forward to seeing you guys at the next event. We have an in-person, I'll plug it now. We have a dev user group meeting coming up on March 15th. Although I don't know if we posted it in March. We have a dev user group meeting coming up, so keep an eye out for that. And yeah, thanks everyone, and we will chat soon.
Thanks, Laura and Chris, for presenting. Good stuff.
Great day, and keep those salaries growing.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. Appreciate you guys. Take care.
Yeah. Stay warm and have a good rest of your week.
Take care, everybody.